So this should have been a pretty quick job here. It's just one dead tree I'm trying to take down. I figured it'd be useful to upload just to show you guys how there's times you'll try and take a shortcut to get a tree down, and it ends up costing you a lot more time in the long run. That happened on this job. I should have put my climbing gear on, but it was raining out, it was cold. I figured I could just wedge this tree over, but I knew there was some risk of it getting hung up. But I decided to just ignore that and try and wedge the tree. Ended up costing me about double the time to get this tree down. So anyway, I'll let you guys watch this. I'll make some comments throughout it, and then at the very end I'll kind of go over some of the things that happened, just so that you can learn from this and not make the same mistake.
Put them in my back pocket, and we'll go over there and cut this thing over. So we're gonna pull this thing right through this opening. It's a dead tree right there, right in the middle here. So we got a nice clearing to put it in right here. We're just gonna put a wedge in the back cut if it's even needed, and drop it right through here. And we'll buck it out of the road and be done. May get caught up in the other trees. I'm hoping not. If it does, no big deal. We'll just stump jump it. That'll be a good video for you guys on how to do that. But I'm hoping it'll just go through this brush and not get caught up in these other trees. Remember, you guys, look at the back of your tree, look up, go to the side, look at the side lean, and try and just kind of determine where your weight is. It looks like this tree will probably go without even wedging it. We'll see how it works out. Just a tip, this tree I'm not going to need to do it on. Let's say this tree had side lean towards the house. Really, even if it doesn't have side lean, you should cut on the opposite side of your target. What I mean by that is you don't really want to cut from that other side, because you can't see what your input is right here on this side. This is the side you have to be careful not to cut off. Over here, you can cut this off by accident, and you're still okay if you retain holding wood over here, because the house, our target's right here. So when you're cutting bigger trees or trees with side leans, and really anything that you got a high value target on the opposite side, make sure you're over here cutting so you can pay attention to that holding wood, and there's no risk of you cutting it off by accident.
So here in a second, you're going to see me set up the face cut here. This is totally up to you guys how you want to make your face cuts. You can do a flat cut first and come in, swing under and get your angle, or you can make your angle cut first like I'm doing here, and then make your flat cut. My suggestion is, if you're new to tree cutting, you don't fall a lot of trees, is to make your angle cut first. It's so much easier to match that flat cut instead of trying to swing under. If you're really proficient and you've been doing it a long time, swinging under to do your Humboldt cuts and things like that is very easy. But as you're learning to run a saw, it's much easier for you to match those cuts by making that angle cut first and gunning your saw, then coming in for that flat cut.
Check your wood here, right? We want about, say, an inch wood over there. No movement yet in the top. I'm gonna look again. I'm almost cut up. Still no movement, so we're gonna wedge it. Leave your tip for the bar end.
Here's a really important tip for you guys that are new to cutting trees. There's a saying that basically your tree, when it's cut up, meaning when your hinge wood is at that final thickness and that tree should go, whether with wedges or without wedges, don't cut any more on it, especially when it's around other trees like this situation. This tree is hung up top, it's all limb tied in with other trees, and if I were to keep thinning that hinge down, you could end up losing control of the tree because you completely cut that hinge off, thinking that it should go, but it's tied up and you're not realizing that. So be really careful in this type of situation. Get your wedges in there. If the tree's still not going, then you have a problem. It's completely limb tied and you're going to need to get a line set up in it, which is what I do with this tree to try and pull it over. Don't keep cutting, just analyze the situation, figure out what you can do to get that tree on the ground without cutting any more in that hinge wood. So what I'm doing here is trying to use wedges to force this tree through all those limbs that it's tied up in. Sometimes it works and you can get a tree to go. Other times it won't budge and you have to set a line. The decision to wedge a tree versus climbing it is something that's a case-by-case basis. You have to look at each tree and some of the risks and structures that are next to it. Are there other trees around it that it could possibly be limb tied into? Because once you get that face cut in a tree and you decide to just try and wedge it over, now you're not climbing it. So if something goes wrong, now you have to figure out another way of getting it down, which is usually to pull it over. But it takes a substantial amount of time versus just going up the tree with your gear. So this tree, like I said in the beginning, it would have saved me a lot of time had I just put my gear on, climbed it, chunked it down in pieces. I would have never had that risk of it getting hung up on me. So just keep that in mind the next job you do. Think about whether you can get it on the ground faster by climbing it, or is it worth the risk of trying to wedge it and potentially costing yourself a lot more time dealing with that tree if it goes wrong. So since the wedges aren't working to get this tree through all these limbs up there, I'm going to basically stump jump the tree to see if I can shake it loose and it'll fall into that path. When you're using this technique, all you need to do is come in at an angle like I'm doing here in the back, and then before your bar gets pinched, you pull your bar out and come up from underneath to get that last little bit of wood, and the tree will just fall to the ground, just like here. You have to be really careful though in using this method that your feet aren't anywhere near that tree. So your right foot, if that's up in front of the tree while you're doing this stump jumping technique, it can fall right onto your foot and end up crushing your foot. So be really careful of that. Another danger of stump jumping a tree is what's going to happen here. As I take this last piece, the tree continues to straighten itself up more and more and become more vertical as you take sections. What can happen is the tree can sit up all the way vertical and then go sideways on you. So you have to be very careful of that. I have a house on my left side and a house on my right side. And so this tree is too vertical now to deal with trying to stump jump it anymore. If I were to take one more piece, there's a good chance that tree would have fallen off to the left into the other house. So now my only other option is to just grab a rope and pull the tree over.
Took a throw ball. I'm going to toss that up into one of the limbs, and then we're going to tie off a rope to the tree and just pull it over. It's a little bit more work than what I wanted to have to do on this, but it is what it is. Okay. Yeah, we'll just try and get one there. That's fine. It's funny, sometimes you think something's gonna save you some time and then ends up costing you more time. Just a pile hitch here to get this rope up in the tree. Then you do a half hitch.
So unfortunately, I didn't get to film everything I was doing here. It was raining out, as you guys can see. It was cold. This is during the winter time. So I was just trying to get this tree down and get out of here. Basically, you just pull this rope up over the tree, over some limbs, and tie it off to the base of the tree. Just make sure when you do that, that the limbs you have it over are plenty strong, because as you start to pull on it with your truck or whatever piece of equipment you're using, you can break those limbs out and end up losing the tree. So
well, that worked out. I just threw a clove hitch on my hitch here and closed this up, and that works out just fine when you're trying to pull stuff over. Anyway, we were able to get enough pressure on it to pull it through there, and now I can buck it up and that'll be it. Still
So I wasn't able to film pulling the tree over because I was the only one out there. I was driving the truck and just trying to pay attention to what was going on. Everything worked out. I was able to force it through the other treetops and get it to land exactly where we need it to. This is just some old footage I had. I just wanted to put this together just to show you that there are times you think you're going to take a shortcut and save yourself time, and you end up actually costing yourself a lot more than what you should. So just make sure you're evaluating your trees before you make any quick decisions to just try and wedge a tree over. I've seen a lot of videos and guys that set up very complicated rigging systems to get a tree on the ground when they could have climbed it and had it chunked to the ground in a fraction of the time. Of course, every situation's different. Sometimes climbers are tired. Maybe it is raining out and it's just cold and you don't want to get that climbing gear on. There's a bunch of reasons for not getting up in a tree. Maybe it's a dangerous tree. It's got a lot of rot in it. But if the tree's sound and you can clearly see that climbing it is going to be a better option and get the tree down faster for you, yeah, it takes a little more effort physically, but it'll save you so much time in the long run to just go up that tree and put it on the ground that way, rather than wedging it and then getting yourself into a situation where you have to then employ all these different ways of getting this thing down, and there's more risk than you just having climbed the tree and taking care of it that way. Anyway, hopefully this helps somebody out that's new to climbing and saves you some time in the long run. Thanks for watching, guys. God bless, and I will see you on the next one.